Indeed, I am. I am the host. Oh, it's a mantle I wear proudly on my shoulders. Hello, everybody. I thank you all so very much for being here. This is the swellest thing in the world. Our first time on a Zoom meeting. So we're doing this live. Oh, and first of all, before I go any further, I have to give a huge shout out and a great drum roll and a tremendous celebration to a woman who, without her, we would be doing none of this, because you know me, I'm basically a Luddite. Amber Greenberg, the lovely and riotously talented Amber Greenberg.
Hi, everyone.
Whoa, give it
So
up.
nice to join you all.
Yes, without her, where would we be? I don't want to think. I would be shouting to you through a paper cup, with a string tied to it. I am not good. So thank you, Amber, so much for our first live streaming Zoom. Certainly not the last, but because of Amber, we were able to do it. And I bless you all for being here. Yes, what a long, strange trip it's been, as Jerry Garcia said, and we have made it here, and that's what matters. I thank you all. The StorySalon still lives big and true and important in all of our lives, and I have missed it, and I have missed you, and I have missed our time just telling stories, and we will continue to do that in this fashion. And I cannot begin to tell you that means the world to me. That means the world to me to continue to do this. So I thank you all in advance for your stories. I thank you all in advance for being here. And I thank you all simply for trudging this road that we have all trudged together. It just makes it so much better. So I think that is it. Certainly more information to come, but we want to be doing this Zoom at least once a month, and hopefully we can build it up a little bit. And tonight is our very first one. Again, a very special show. We have some superb people on the show tonight. And I'm going to start off with one of our favorites, one of our very, very favorites. Gosh, you could see her on commercials. She did a play. She did a live Zoom play from New York this year. She's written books. This woman is tremendously prolific. Not only that, she's really gorgeous. Not only that, she is really talented. Not only that, she is wonderful and superb in every way. And I give you tonight's first storyteller. Thank you so much for being here, Miss Donna Allen Figueroa.
Yay!
Woo, yay.
Beverly?
I'm trying.
Yeah. You need to let Donna in so she could tell her story.
I am. I'm so sorry. I'm learning how to do this, but I saw her, now I don't see her.
I think Vance needs to come in also.
Go to participants, Beverly, where it says participants.
I did, but now I don't. She was up there before.
Yeah.
Go to invite. Participants, and then you invite.
I'm so embarrassed. Participants. Wait a minute.
Where it says invite. She's on the list and you click on her.
I know. I saw her up there. Oh my goodness.
Do you ever feel like you're living in a Progressive insurance commercial right now?
Yes, I do. Please tell Donna I'm sorry. I will do this better. But oh, wait a minute. No. But I still don't see her. Damn. Sorry. I think we need to get Amber up here.
Are you trying to get in?
Hi.
Please wait. The meeting host will let you wait. Okay, I'm coming.
She's coming.
There it is.
All right. My fault. Oh, wait. Here she is. I saw her. Sorry.
Hi.
You're still not in.
Still not in. Still not doing this.
There
right.
she is.
Hi. Hi, everyone. It's so good to see everyone. Oh, my God.
Hi, Donna.
Thank you.
I felt like I was being punished and had to wait out in the hallway. Seriously. So I would like to tell you about a friend of mine. The story begins years ago. My hairstylist had moved to Chicago. I wasn't happy. And, well, I needed everything. So I found a new salon and a new hairstylist. And I got there, and the owner says, sorry, we've been trying to reach you. The woman who was going to do your hair, her kid got sick. She's not coming. Now, I would later find out that she booked a job on a big photo shoot. That's why she wasn't there. But he told me to have a seat. In fact, he was going to give me a complimentary spa service. They called somebody else in to do my hair. So about 45 minutes later, woman comes up to me, Donna, hi, I'm Lena. I'll be doing your hair. Now, I meant to say, hi, thank you for coming in. What came out of my mouth was, you're going to do my hair? You see, Lena was short, blonde, and Russian. I booked an appointment with an African-American stylist, someone who knew how to handle my hair. She looked at me and assured me she could handle my hair. I needed everything. I was desperate. I let her do my hair and just prayed. 25 years later, Lena is still my stylist. She has an interesting story. She immigrated to this country when she was about 12. She went to cosmetology school, got her license, and couldn't find a job. The only place that would hire her was an African-American salon where she was a shampoo girl. But she's very talented. And being a shampoo girl, she was bored. And the owner realized this and taught her how to do African-American hair. So in the beginning, all of her clients were Black. Today, it's about 50-50. As I said, we've been together a long time, 25 plus years. We've seen each other through a lot, life events, professional events. She's a US citizen, but she still doesn't quite understand how some things work. 10 years ago, she came to me with a form. What is this? Is this legit? What's happening? It was a census form. I explained, it's just to count people. It's okay, you can fill it out. She was going to take her kids on a road trip, drive up the coast and drive into Canada. I said, fantastic. Do you and your kids have passports? Well, I'm getting a passport. My kids are under 18. They don't need one. I'm afraid they do. She wouldn't believe me. We looked it up online. Yeah, they needed passports. And then, of course, there was jury duty. I helped her through the form and what to do. There was one night I was going to be late for my appointment. It was election day and I was going to vote. When I came into the salon, she was interested. So you voted today, only today. Is it for the president? Well, it was an off year. Oh, I said, Lena, you've never voted? No, I don't understand politics. And she got flustered, so I let it go. 2016, I asked, Lena, are you going to vote in the election? Oh, my vote doesn't count. Who am I? They throw my vote out. And she was serious. I remember how things were in Russia. No. Well, I haven't seen Lena a lot during the pandemic, but I was going to see her on Sunday, and I thought about asking her about voting again, and I decided not to. Sometime that afternoon, though, I asked if her kids were registered to vote. They were both of voting age now, 18 and 20, and she told me that they were. Fantastic. And she said, you know, you really seem interested in this. It's important to you. I said, yes, it's how our democracy works. I have a voice. I want it to be heard. I matter. And she asked me to tell her about the first time I voted. Well, I went back further than that. Told her about the time when I was 10 and my dad took me into the voting booth with him and how excited I was. And he explained how to vote. I knew some of the people he was voting for. He even voted for one man. I said, but he's in the other party. And he said, but he's a good man with good ideas, and I think he deserves our support. Important lesson. There were propositions. There was one about a park. And my dad asked me, a 10-year-old, what I thought about this. And it seemed like a good idea to me. So I said, well, give that a vote then. I was excited watching the results and learning the results. The park proposition passed, and I felt a part of it. When I was 18, I couldn't wait to register and cast my vote for the first time. Elena looked at me. And she said, you know, maybe I want to get involved too. How do I do this? I said, well, you start by registering. It's simple. You can do it online. And I was about to say, I'll grab my laptop. And I said, you know, I know your kids are registered to vote. why don't you ask them to take you through the process? Today, I got a text from her. She's registered to vote. She's been in this country for over 30 years, and for the first time, she is going to cast a ballot this year. So I have a challenge. If any of you have friends or family members who, for whatever reason, have never registered to vote, tell them one of your voting stories. Tell them what it means to you. Your friend might just surprise you and turn around and register. So great to see everyone. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Or if you don't know anyone that's registered to vote, you could just send them to Donna Allen Figueroa. And she will tell them face to face why they should vote. Thank you so much, Donna. Oh gosh. You know, and I completely forgot earlier to mention that our theme for tonight was, this is why my story is important. So that is the theme. So thank you, Donna. Sorry, I'm gonna need help with this. Next time we do this, next month, boy, am I gonna be a whiz. You guys just wait. Aha, okay, all right. Thank you. I'm going to bring up someone who I adore, who I've not seen, well, yeah, since March, since this whole thing went on. She is bright and wonderful and funny, did a solo show at the Salon that was pure goodness, pure wonderfulness. She is pure Pat Wilson. Just give me a second, everybody. Ah, dang. Okay. Dang. Sorry, everybody. Oh, gracious. Right. You know what? We're going to have
Can Pat unmute herself?
yes.
Yes, she can. It's down lower left.
All right. If Pat can unmute herself, that would be super swell. Yay. Thank you, Pat. Sorry about that again. Miss Pat Wilson. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, my initial exposure to performing came at an early age. I was in 4th grade in Wiesbaden, Germany. My 4th grade teacher, Ms. Sweet, was very cosmopolitan, completely opposite from my parents, who were south of the Mason-Dixon line country types. She took us to Amsterdam and to Paris and showed us what the future had to offer. She took the class to an opera in Frankfurt, Germany, where my imagination took flight. There was a girl about my age on stage performing. She was acting and singing and dancing. I was an introvert by nature, but that was about to change. I knew I wanted the same experience she was having. This amazing 4th grade teacher saw the light in my eyes and took charge. Whenever I didn't do well on an assignment in class, my punishment was to memorize long poems and to read them out loud to the class. I credit her for the joyful path that she opened up for me, and I'm still on. Our family moved to Hanover Courthouse, Virginia, which was a very small town overladen with history. A hotel that once housed Patrick Henry and Henry Clay was converted into a theater/bar. My dad patronized the bar most nights.
Mhm.
and entertain the actors with colorful stories. They wanted him on stage with them, so they cast him in a play. Well, I went to see it and was inspired once more. Well, he was quite good, but I knew I could do better. I would rehearse made up stories in the woods and play all the parts. I loved the stage, still do. I find my spiritual connection is there. I like to surrender to a role. Once I've learned it, I let it take me wherever it wants. I have to let go of my low self-esteem and my fear and my doubts and bare my soul. I become the fourth grade child again, filled with awe and inspiration. The theater has become my church. I respect it like no other place. I was mainly a comedic actress and sought out very few opportunities to play serious roles until tragedy came into my personal life. I had just left an interview at a university hoping to be accepted in the theater department. The registrar had seen me perform and he was a devoted fan, so my acceptance was going to be obvious. And I was going to get to begin the next semester. Overjoyed, I picked up my son from the sitter to drive home and tell my friends of my good fortune. I was hosting a New Year's party that night. Well, we never made it home. The road accident cost me my left leg and my son his life. I now became deeply familiar with tragedy. After nearly a year in the hospital and lots of practice using a prosthesis, a deep depression set in. Couldn't seem to shake it off. I tried visiting others who suffered the same kind of maladies, but I was of no use to them. I could inspire no one. Instead of bringing cheer, I would flee in tears of my own. Church was no help. I was left with more questions than answers. My marriage suffered from all the trauma to the point of dissolution. I was left with one choice between two things. Either I could wallow in the suffering forever and never recover, or I could stand up, straighten up, and find out whatever it was that inspired me again and throw myself into it completely. Well, I chose that life and began again. After university and graduate school and performing at many colleges, I decided to go to New York and try myself in the professional field. I won a scholarship at Circle in the Square acting school and was cast in a few off-Broadway shows. When one of my teachers said I should try film and that Hollywood was the place for me. That was so long ago, 1978, I think, yeah. I packed my bag and talked my roommate into going with me, and we set off for Los Angeles. I flourished once more. As time progressed and the women's roles declined, I found I couldn't really let that magic go for long, so I began directing. That was as fulfilling as I hoped it would be. Now that the directing gigs have slowed to a snail's pace, I find that storytelling is the one thing that keeps my personal creativity alive and well. I even produce a storytelling event myself a few times a year when there's no pandemic. This is my life, and I choose it again and again. Here in my 74th year, it seems like there's always new sufferings that befall us, but I'm always left with that same choice. It is no longer as difficult as it was the first time, thankfully. I once heard that when you stop creating, you're telling the universe that you're finished here. Well, I'm not finished yet by any means. Thanks.
Oh, yay. Oh,
Thank you. All right.
Pat Wilson, thank you so, so much. Oh my gosh. This is why I have missed doing the salon. Thank you so much. Thank you. I'm going to bring I'm going to bring up with probably a lot of delay and a small amount of cursing our next storyteller, who is a frequent host of our Story Salon. And I say this about him quite often, but it is true quite often that he is funny, he is sharp, he is tender, he is sweet. It's all the things that you really want in a storyteller. So just give me a moment to here to tell his story. I might need you to unmute. Tony is Mr. Tony Figueroa.
Oh, great.
Hey.
It worked. Oh, it is so great to see everyone. Kind of missed the sound of Jack the Dove in the background. The sweet face of Story Salon. Me with my coffee. But we're doing this. Anyway, in a couple of days, it will be the 2nd anniversary of my mother's death. And I remember that day very well. I remember going into her home office and I was looking for any paperwork that had her final wishes, her final requests, because unlike some people, I actually care about people's final wishes. I could not find them. They did not exist. I tried to figure out her filing system. Everything was neat. Everything was kind of in its own little place. The only system I think she had was she put things where they fit. So if it fit in this box, it went here. This box went in here, and made no sense. I found a lot of other stuff. I found the wedding certificate for my grandparents, the divorce papers of my parents, and my report cards. A lot of my report cards. I don't think I was a bad student, but some people might want to debate that. I think my main problem was reading. I could read words, but I had trouble having the words strung together. And I remember getting the early books, I did have Dick and Jane, and I remember trying to read. Jimmy's mom drove to the car wash and got extra pickles. And it didn't make sense. And I would go back, Jimmy's mom. And then I'd have to follow each word with my finger. Jimmy's mom drove to the car wash, then later had lunch. She had a hamburger with extra pickles. Oh, so by the time the rest of the kids were done reading the story and the teacher was asking questions, I was still on the first couple of sentences. It drove me nuts. I couldn't understand why people enjoyed reading. I couldn't understand the idea of curling up with a good book. I didn't understand why people got agitated if the newspaper was late. And I really couldn't understand why people would say, you know what, the book was so much better than the movie. This was very difficult for me, and it went all through elementary school, junior high school. High school, I was often criticized for not reading. Oh, you should read more. Go read a book, do something, read. And I just wasn't enjoying it. It was very difficult for me. In high school, I learned there was this thing called dyslexia. And I thought it was kind of odd, where all the letters were jumbled and people couldn't. And in college, there was more talk about dyslexia. And I remember there were several TV shows, and they were usually a very special episode. You knew they were a very special episode because back in those days, if you looked at the TV guide, there'd be a little section called the close-up. And there's a very special episode. And I was learning more about dyslexia, but the important message was, this doesn't mean you're stupid. In fact, a lot of smart people like Einstein had dyslexia. There's nothing wrong with your eyes. There's nothing wrong with your brain, but somehow the messages don't travel properly. I thought, okay, well, I don't think that's what my problem is. But fortunately, I talked to my English teacher in college, And she said, there's a place on campus you can go to, and they might help you figure out the problem. So, yeah. So I went there. They gave me a series of tests. Read paragraphs, circle words, find this. There was this new thing called a Macintosh computer. And they had these programs where all these words would come out, they start dancing around, and then they'd form a sentence, and I'd have to read the sentence before they all started drifting off away. So it was headache inducing, but it was helpful. I took a few other tests. Before the session was done, lady sat me down, said, let me guess. When you were in the first grade and you were reading, you would follow the words with your finger. And I said, yes. And then the teacher would come by and slap your hand. And I said, yes, because corporal punishment was still legal. And then she looked at me and she said, those teachers gave you the worst disservice that they could possibly do. This is your problem. Your eyes are not tracking the sentences. You're starting on one line, and then some point in the middle of the sentence, you move down to the next line or even the line further than that. That's why when you read stuff, it doesn't make sense. You have a large vocabulary. You're a very smart young man. You just can't read those things. We have a couple of different therapies. We'd like to try them out on you. But the most important thing I want you to do is, when you go home, find a book on something that you're really interested in and start reading it, and don't be afraid to follow the sentences with your finger and take all the time you need. There's no stopwatch. It's not a test. Just enjoy the book. After a couple of sessions with them and different experiments with the Macintosh computer and a couple of trips to a bookstore, I fell in love with reading. I got it. I understood the pleasure of curling up with a good book. I understood this new thing, and I wanted more of it. When I would go to work, you would often see me with a book under my arm or a newspaper. I even had a boss that told me to stop bringing reading material to work. So I went from people criticizing me for not reading to having people criticizing for me reading at work, even though I was only reading on the breaks. So let's jump ahead to March of this year. My day job hasn't existed since March of this year, but I've been busy. I've been dedicating time to my unions, plural. I have been spending a lot of time taking classes on Zoom. I have been auditioning on Zoom. I've been doing voiceover auditions, reading off of an iPad. I've been going through my emails on my phone. I've been going 10, 12 hours a day, 7 days a week. And then all of a sudden I was feeling exhausted. My eyes were sore. I couldn't realize why is it that I'm working so hard and I can't sleep. And then it occurred to me, I have been spending all this time staring at screens like I am now. And then I decided I need a break. I'm going to stop looking at screens. I'm going to start reading books again. And it's worked. I'm sleeping better. I'm resting better. I'm less irritable, ask Donna. And I have this wonderful opportunity to read all the books that I was able to buy at Samuel French before they closed abruptly.
Oh.
But I close with one more thing. I have turned into one of those people who, after seeing a movie, will say, you know, the book was better. Thank you.
Very good.
Thank you, Tony. Oh my gosh, that was what. Tony is our reading rainbow. Thank you. You're our LeVar Burton now. Very cool. Thank you, Tony, so much. Oh my God. I don't want to keep breaking in on this, but I miss this sweet sucker of storytelling that everyone is giving us right now. So thank you. All right. Again, I'm going to apologize before I introduce everyone. I want to make sure. Yay. Okay. Let's see if I can do this. We are so grateful to this woman because she has provided us year after year with her backyard to do stories under the stars and to really enjoy this. She is so prolific. She has written books. She has written books. She's also done several one-person shows. She's always asked to do shows outside of the Story Salon because she is her own je ne sais quoi. Exquisitely, she is Miss Lila Silverin.
Thank you, Beverly. Okay.
Yay.
Okay. I loved your story, Tony. And I'm going to read a story that's going to be in my next book. I'm going to read a story from the past about the future. It's called The Socrates Strain. Dateline, Washington, D.C., September 30th, 2099. A crisis faces our nation and all nations on our planet Earth. Today, members of the Presidential Commission on Genetic Population Programming are meeting behind closed doors to come up with a solution. Ever since Dolly, the cloned sheep, back in the last century, modern science has worked to control genetic reproduction so as to perfect the species. By selective breeding, we can now predict that every infant born will excel in the field of our government's choice, be it mathematics, science, art, music, law enforcement, or government leadership. Up until now, we've been ahead of other planets in the universe. Our scientists have won the space race. Our athletes have won in all intergalactic competition. Our doctors have cured AIDS, cancer, Ebola, and the coronavirus. But now we're faced with a far greater challenge. Our sources are depleted. Our reserves are diminished. The greatest population planners were unable to avert a teacher shortage. Yes, a teacher shortage. The ranks of instructors, professors, teachers, and educators are nearly obliterated, and there are no replacements on the horizon. In the ancient days of Dewey, Sylvia, Ashton Warner, Mr. Chips, and Madeline Hunter, there was a saying, "Those who can do, those who can't teach." Based on this precept, the early days of experimentation, the imperfect products of our laboratories inherited the teaching positions, which correlated with our genetic combinations. The inferior mathoid taught math. The impaired opera singer taught music. This appeared to be a satisfactory arrangement for all concerned. Then things changed with the pandemic of the 2020s. Teachers had to become computer experts, skilled in online teaching. The need for teachers to write on chalkboards and gather little ones on the rug for a song and a lesson had gone. Many teachers with years of experience retired and left young tech experts to take over. Only a few younger ones came back after the vaccine and cure. So much damage had been done in 2020 that they needed special classes in counseling and remediation. Not until recently has attention been given to the responsibility of retraining and educating specially designed teachers. We're faced with a crisis which is as great a threat as global warming was to our primitive ancestors. Who will accept the burden to teach our future generations? In our master plan, we omitted one essential element, the formula to produce a perfect strain of teacher, the Socrates strain. By manipulation of chromosomes, we will now be able to create the perfect teacher for any subject. Our problem is to identify the ideal genetic package that will make up the ideal super educator that is needed in our society. Panels of experts have not been able to come to a consensus on the ingredients that go into a formula for the perfect educator. Long hours have been spent brainstorming and debating genetic characteristics most suitable for cloning and replication. As these scientists recall memories of their own past teachers who influenced their lives, it's been difficult to determine and isolate the common strain that's the makeup of all good teachers. Dr. Ho Chi Lee remembers the strict disciplinarian and who insisted on perfection in the calligraphy class. Dr. Lupe Schweitzer recalls with nostalgia the gentle good humor of the teacher who taught multiplication, making it a game. Professor Emeritus Jones remembers the teacher who said little and let the students learn independently and cooperatively. Professor Black recalls how online impersonal instruction helped her succeed. In their efforts to produce the master teacher, laboratories have spliced the genes of law enforcers with composers and nurse practitioners with communicators. They've tried to unite the excitement of a performer with the reliability of an accountant. They've done the patience of a yogi with the compassion of a Mother Teresa. To date, all efforts have failed. Japanese companies have given up on the manufacture of a robot teacher with a heart implant. The Russians claim to success with domestic animal-human mutations has not been substantiated. The question in everyone's mind is, where do we go from here? Student groups at this moment are protesting outside the doors of their locked universities. Masterpiece children play wildly on the streets while the kindergartens are closed and silent. Why, we ask ourselves, did our ancestors struggle to save the polar bear and other endangered species and not have the foresight to protect the teacher from extinction? That is my message tonight.
That was Lila Silverin. Thank you. Oh gosh, thank you so much, Lila. Shout out, a cautionary tale, to be sure.
Right. And I really missed having the stories under the stars. You know,
Yes.
that was, well,
I know.
Let's hope next year.
Let's hope next year. I think we will get back to that. Thank you so very much. Always. I am very happy. So this next young fellow, and indeed he is, I always ask to do any show that I'm doing because he is just profoundly amazing. I really consider him a consummate storyteller. When Mr. Hall tells a story, I really, really listen. It's funny, I think I listen more than I usually do because I want to see how he pieces it together. I want to see how, as Stevie Wonder sang, he'd do what he do, because damn, it's good. Again, an early apology, but I'm going to bring up Mr. Rick Hall.
I've already unmuted myself.
Yes, you have, baby.
A couple of years ago, I got hired to do a play in Chicago, and I was thrilled to do it because Chicago is where I started my acting career. And so it was like going home, except this time the theater was putting me up in a beautiful high-rise apartment on the Gold Coast of Chicago. I wasn't living in my cramped little apartment on Taylor Street in Little Italy. And every day, it was so beautiful. Every day I would walk out my front door through this park in between all the buildings and then along Lakeshore Drive to the theater on Navy Pier. And it was so great. The only thing that was bad about it was the fact that it was February in Chicago. It was butt freezing cold, man. It was so cold. So every day I'd walk to work. Well, one day I had a matinee and an evening show, and I left early that afternoon, and I hadn't been outside yet. I didn't realize it was a beautiful sunny day and was 42 degrees. Okay, in Chicago, 42 degrees to those people is spring. And that park that I would normally walk through that nobody's in, everybody was out in the park. People had come out of their buildings like bats out of a cave, you know, and the kids were playing on the swings and stuff, and the skateboarders were doing their thing, and people were walking their dogs, glad to be able to pick up the poop before it actually froze to the ground. And as I walked by, there was a girl, a young woman, probably in her 20s, sitting on a block wall and leaning against another one, and she was actually asleep. It was a pretty sight, except it is 42 degrees and she's got no coat on. Well, I'm Captain Friendly and I will talk to anybody, and I'm a dad. So I thought I better go tell her she needs to put a coat on. And she was asleep, you know. I didn't want her to get, you know, cold. So I walked over to her, and as I got closer, I noticed that she had her earbuds in, but she dropped her phone. Her hand was hanging down to her side, and she dropped her phone on the ground. And then when I got closer to her, I could see that her skin was like grayish blue, and her chin was all the way on her chest like this, and thick saliva was coming out of her mouth onto her blouse. And I tried to wake her up by talking to her. I was like, honey, are you okay? Hey, wake up. Hey, kiddo. Nothing. So I reached out and touched her arm. I grew up on a farm, so I've dealt with dead animals before. I swear, she felt like she was dead. I mean, her skin was clammy and cold, and she didn't move. And so I took her wrist and I tried to feel for a pulse on her wrist. There was nothing. And then I knew you can get a better pulse on the neck. And so I pulled her head up so I could get to her neck, and I put my fingers on her neck, and there was nothing. And as I stood there with my fingers on this girl's neck, I could see all these kids and all this activity in the park around me. And I thought, this is so surreal that I'm here with this dead girl, and there's all this life all around us. And nobody seems to notice. It's all about the life. And as I stood there, all of a sudden I felt something under my fingers. And I was like, was that a pulse? It was really weak, whatever it was. But I didn't move. I didn't breathe. I just sat there. I stood there and I kept my hand on her neck, and I felt it again. Okay, I got a pulse. I pulled her head up off her chest so she could breathe better, and I held her head, and I grabbed my phone with one hand and called 911. Of course, no signal, right? I'm in the middle of a metropolis, no signal. You know, 007 can be in the middle of a desert in a lead bunker and he can get a cell phone signal, but I'm in the middle of the city and I can't get a signal. And I'm looking out over the people thinking, do I yell out to all these parents and their kids and ask someone to call 911? And then behind me, I heard somebody said, hey, you need some help? And I looked out, it was a doorman from the building next to ours. And he said, that girl's been there a long time. Is she okay? I said, no, call 911. He ran inside, called 911. I held her, and in her lap was a journal. I guess it was a journal. She was writing in a notebook. And normally I wouldn't read somebody's journal, but I thought, maybe there's something in this journal that will tell me what's going on here. Maybe she's taking drugs or something. I don't know. And so as I held her head, I looked down and I could read the script, what she had written. And in the beginning, it was very coherent, but it was getting sloppier. You could tell as she was fading away. And I don't remember exactly what it said, but basically she said, I married this man. I love him very much. We moved to Chicago. I'm so far away from my family. I know I should be happy. I've got this new beautiful baby, but I'm so sad. And then the pen just trailed off the page. A few seconds later, I could hear the sirens coming. You know how it echoes off of a building? And they got closer and closer, and the paramedics got there, and I told them what I knew, which was very little. And I let them take over, and I got out of the way. And the weird thing was, then I left to go to work, to go to the theater and do this show, this comedy, this French farce, 300 people in the audience, 2 shows, and they're laughing. And through the whole show, every time I stepped off stage, I couldn't help but think about this girl that was fighting for her life while we're just doing our stuff, life going on, you know? The next day, I left for work a little early because I wanted to go by the other apartment building just to see if that doorman was there because I wanted to know what happened. And when I walked in the lobby, the guy looked up and it was him. And he looked up and he goes, "Hey, you're the guy." And I said, "Hey, you're the other guy." And he said, "Did you know what happened to her after you left? Her friend came by and she called her husband and her husband came there too. And the paramedics took her to the hospital with her family and she's going to be okay. She's going to be in a hospital for a couple of days, but she's going to be okay." And she had something, they said it's postpartum depression, you know? Yeah, that's bad stuff. And I said, yeah, it can be really hard on somebody. And as I started to leave, he said, hey, we did good yesterday, didn't we? We were a good team. And I said, yeah, we were a good team, but we were just part of the team. I mean, her family was there, the paramedics, the doctors. There was a big team and we were part of a big team. And he said, yeah, that's true. You know what's funny? I know that girl. She lives in this building. And now that I've seen her, I know her. And I've seen her many times. And she walks through here and she got the beautiful baby and she got the handsome husband and she's cute as hell. And they live in this fancy building. I figured, she had the world, in her hands. She had everything she needed. It's funny, man. You never know what somebody's going through, do you? And I said, no, you never do. I think about the things I've learned in life from my mom and dad, my family, my friends, teachers, professors at school. But I've got a philosophy lesson from a doorman in Chicago. Thanks.
Thank you. Oh, thank you, Rick Hall, so very, very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good luck to you. Thank you.
It's good to be back with the Story Salon folks, by the way. I love it.
Never leave us again. Well, you never really did leave us, but everyone just stayed and clumped together, or like sardines. Everyone just like cling peaches. Everyone just shoved next to each other in socially distanced way. I am going to bring up someone who I love and adore. I can say that with no fear of reprisal from anyone. This man has done a ton of shows. He was doing his own show for quite some time in lovely Altadena. He has done several one-person shows at our stage and at other stages. He is talented. He is, I say prolific because I don't know another word that kind of like is a good metaphor with prolific, but he writes all the time. He's done a short film. I find him completely mesmerizing. In fact, I might even say magnetic and mesmerizing. Mr. Ty Fance.
Wow, I don't know. It's so cool to be back, man. This is great. I wore the hat in honor of StorySalon, so I got the hat on for that, and I got coffee and snacks. Man, this story is going to be a little revealing, but what the heck. I'm the kind of guy that I never really did drugs because I'm crazy. I don't need them. I'm always imaginative. I see things that nobody else sees. I make comments about things that don't necessarily go together, but in my head, they should. And sometimes it's funny. So let's go back. Like 18, and I got friends that I'm hanging out with, and they always say things to me like, yo, man, you square, man. You need to relax, man. You need to chill. Why are you always reading? You're always trying to analyze stuff. You need to relax, man. I said, well, how would I do that? Well, you need to try some weed. All right. And I'm looking at them like they're stupid, because they are. But they convinced me to try weed. Now, I smoke what I consider to be a small cigarette. It's about yay big. That's too big. It's about that big. These two cats smoke 3 or 4, and they're looking at me and telling me I'm high. And I know I ain't high because I'm looking at them. And I'm looking at them and I'm thinking, you guys are idiots. I'm not high. Man, you high, man. You just don't know it, man. How's somebody gonna be high and not know it? I don't get that. I thought maybe you're supposed to know it. That's why you're taking it, right? Anyway, I do this thing with them and nothing really happens other than my breath stank for like 2 days. but so that threw me off of that. I just went back to my normal crazy. About a year after that, we moved in with my cousin. My cousin's about 38 and he had been in the military. He was in Vietnam. He suffers from anxiety and a couple of other elements, and to the degree that his doctor, he even claimed to have glaucoma. So his doctor diagnosed him and prescribed him marijuana. And I should have tell you this also. I'm the kind of guy that will watch people when they get high and when they do stupid things, I just laugh at them because I think they're stupid in that moment. So I'm benefiting from their high, entertainment wise. So my cousin was basically, he provided a lot of entertainment for me because when he got high, he never smoked it. He would put it in his food. So I guess it was back then, this was before edibles were so popular. He would put the oil in his food and then he'd eat it that way. Cause I don't know, something about smoking the cigarette was a problem for him. So I laugh at him because he'd do everything in slow motion. When he was just walking across the room, you know, I'm just laughing. Now, I have to admit, I didn't know, there was a period of time when I didn't know what edibles were. And while staying with him, because we basically had to move and live with him, I ate one of his edibles. Normally, it was known to be in brownies. Well, this case, this is probably why I didn't have an idea. It was in macaroni and cheese. And I love me some macaroni and cheese. Macaroni and cheese, greens, cornbread, all day and twice on Sunday, okay? So I walk in, you know, I'm hungry. I've been outside running around having fun, and I see this plate of macaroni and cheese, and I cut into it and eat it. Now, because I'm a greedy pig, I decided to get another piece. So I ate two helpings, and I sat down. I was watching TV, and all of a sudden, my mind started to do some shit I'd never known your mind can do. I was analyzing and seeing things in slow motion. I mean, it was regular stuff, just in the details that I had never paid any attention to, right? I mean, like there was a fly that flew from the kitchen to the television and got on the screen. And I began to look at the fly as his little legs were moving on the screen. And I was just fascinated by how it did that. I tried to get up to go to the kitchen. Normally this takes me like, I don't know, 5 seconds. This time it took me like 15 to 20 seconds to make it from the couch to the kitchen. On the way, I see this. I know something is not right, but I can't figure it out. But so everything is slow and I'm careful. And I notice my balance is off a little bit. So now I'm concerned that I might fall. So I'm moving extra slow. I knew I was in trouble when I got in the kitchen and I put my hands on the counter and I kind of braced myself and I began to laugh. Now, I'm not laughing because I'm high. I'm laughing at me because this reminds me what I was doing to my cousin and my other two friends. So it's funny that I'm laughing at myself. And I'm starting to understand, okay, I must be high. So I decided, oh, okay, well, great. Let me wash the dish that I ate the food from. Again, something that will take me normally like, I don't know, 5, 10, 15, 20 seconds. I must have washed that dish for about 1.5 minutes. And what was fascinating me was how the water was rolling across my fingers as I was moving the sponge. And then how the suds would come up through the sponge. I mean, the little detail stuff that I would pay no attention to became very, very interesting. I knew I was in trouble. So I decided to go lay down. And again, something happened that I had never experienced before. As I laid down, on the bed. My upper body felt like it weighed 3-4 tons. It seemed to go through the mattress. But instead of being afraid, I was fascinated by this physical feat. How does that happen that you could possibly go through a mattress? And it's hard to explain it because I was trying to analyze it at the same time. So again, it provided an element of awareness that I had never felt before. Then my foot got really heavy. So I started to figure out, oh, the blood going through my head, through my arteries, all the way down to my feet. And then that little whole process began to expand. And I was seeing all this detail that I guess what I'm trying to say is I shouldn't take drugs because apparently it really takes me to a place of awareness that I really don't need because I'm already crazy. So yeah, that's why y'all need to know that. So, okay, just give me a glass of wine and I'm good to go. No more drugs. Hence, to this date, I don't do drugs. Thank you, guys.
All right, very good. All right.
Macaroni and cheese is okay, but drugs, no.
Oh, God, sorry.
Beverly, you accidentally muted yourself. You probably said something really funny because you are. There you go. Oh, you did it again.
Yep.
Yeah.
I just did unmute.
Now you're good. You're good.
Okay, good. No, I just wanted to know that if you actually saw the face of God or Tommy Chong.
Tommy Chong was probably he looked like God. He asked me for some Maui Wowie, and I told him, bro, no, come on, man. I don't touch that stuff.
All right. When Bob Marley comes to you in a dream and says, man, lay off the marijuana, you know.
Had too much.
All right. Thank you. Oh, if Nancy Reagan were here, we know what she'd say.
Yes, yes. Say no to drugs, Sam. You're already whacked.
Oh, God, well, there's a lot of whacking going on. Thank you. I am going to bring up a man who has been my right-hand guy, my wingman, as I think they call it in certain circles, for quite some time. Without Dan, I said this regularly, but it is true, is he has a great love of storytelling. He has a great love of the StorySalon, and I think one of his desires is to continue to write, to tell stories, to listen to stories. He has immersed himself in this world, and he is really a consummate storyteller. It is always a pleasure listening to how he crafts his work. And I'm sorry, there are two more people that I have to apologize for because I'm learning how to do this, but I want to present to you Mr. Dan Farron.
It's right there. There we go. Now we're unmuted, right?
Yeah.
Do you hear me, Beverly?
Yes, I do. Thank you.
Congratulations. First of all, I'm looking at myself and I realize that I look like the world's tallest lawn gnome right now. I don't know. It's either this or the sun, or a remake of the Sons of Anarchy, one of the two. But 20 years ago, I was doing stand-up in a little coffee house on Ventura Boulevard. Of course, this little coffee house is long gone now. It was a very memorable night because that night I saw my very first storyteller. And I was also robbed at gunpoint when I left the coffee house. And considering the fact that the storyteller made more of an impression on me, that says quite a bit. He told stories and he held the audience in the palm of his hand, telling these stories. And when I came out, I decided that that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to tell stories. And I also wanted to start carrying less cash with me because of the whole being robbed at gunpoint thing. That night put me on the road towards storytelling and gave me one of my earliest stories, that whole being robbed at gunpoint thing. But let's not dwell on that. It seems that I am quite a bit, but let's not dwell on that right now. In 2000, as anybody knows who's been with StorySalon for a while, my father was halfway home in his battle against Alzheimer's. Dad was a great storyteller. Nothing I enjoyed more as a kid would be to sit on the floor and listen to him tell me stories about his life, about World War II, about the Korean War, all this stuff. I love to sit and listen to him. And when he started developing his long-term memory loss and his short-term memory loss, I went out and bought a movie camera, because what I wanted to do was I wanted to somehow record these stories that I could save and have them. I felt it was very important for me to have them at some point. But that only lasted one session. Dad began to slip away so quickly that it became painful to watch the videotapes. And I was really sad, because I thought that this moment is gone. I've lost my father's life, and I want to have something to remember him by, and it's gone. But it wasn't. I found letters that my father wrote. I found college and high school books and papers and term papers. And I started using those as a jumping off point. I started researching and using some of the ancestry and genealogy sites. And I went on newspaper.com, which I belong to this day. I love newspaper.com. I can go back and read newspapers from 100 years ago from all around the world. And it's one of my favorite things to do to relax. And I found things in there. I found his mother's wedding announcement. I found his mother's divorce announcement with all the details. I found all this stuff about my dad that I never knew. So I decided to bring them into StorySalon and to share the stories with everybody there. And I found myself making a connection with people, sometimes complete strangers. And that's always been my favorite thing about performing, is I think whether it's acting or writing or stand-up or storytelling, I always loved it whenever I could make a connection with somebody. And one of my favorite, comedians always remember their best shows and their worst shows. But I remember a show that wasn't really anything special. I was performing the night before Thanksgiving in a LAX lounge. And in the middle, you would work through these setups, and when you would get to the punchline, at that moment they would announce the next flight, and half the people would get up and leave the room. But you could just start all over again if you wanted to. But there were two guys sitting down front, and I said something or whatever it was, and the one guy nudged the other guy and laughed. And I thought, wow, how great! These are a couple of guys that I've never met before. I will never see them ever again. But I've made that connection. And I think that's something that anybody who does anything artistic, that's something they need. They throw the ball out and they want you to throw the ball back to them. So I found that my father's legacy was in these stories, and it helped people to tell these stories. And it also helped me to understand my father even better. And sometimes that help is not even a big thing. It could just be a flicker of recognition, or it could be a simple laugh. And that's when I started to realize, excuse me 1 second, I dropped a paper. There we go. And I started to realize at that moment how important stories were. Now, I'm the same age that my father was when he got sick. And as most of you know, on Christmas night last year, I got very, very, very sick. Really, really sick. And as I laid in my hospital bed in the middle of the night, not being able to sleep, I did a couple things. The first thing I did was spend way too much money on Amazon in the middle of the night. I love my beanie. I don't know any reason why I need to have a lucky beanie, but for some reason that night I bought this. But what I also did was grab my phone and start writing and start talking about how I felt. I posted on Facebook. I wrote notes. I told everybody what was happening. Funny stories that scared me. And I realized that my story was important, and I could learn more about me and make a connection and possibly help people not to feel quite alone. Which brings us to 2020. Now here in 2020, more than ever, this dumpster fire, train wreck, clown car of a year is rumbling to a close. We need stories. So what I say to you is make a film. Write on a piece of paper, use a typewriter, write a poem, a song, zoom it. Write it on the sidewalk with chalk. It's the most important thing that you can do right now. And right now, whether we like it or not, this is the new normal. So let's discover it in our stories. And if you promise to do that, maybe sometime I'll tell you the story about how I was robbed at gunpoint. Stay safe, everybody. Thanks.
Nice. Nice, nice, nice.
Thank you, Dan Farron, so much. Thank you. I wasn't the one who robbed you, right?
No,
I
it
don't think.
was the opening act. The opening act robbed me on the
Okay,
way
good.
out.
I've had a past. That's all I'll say. Thank you so much, Dan Farron. Again, this.
By the way, there's a theme night, Beverly.
What?
I had a past.
Oh,
There's your theme night. Write that down right
wonderful.
now.
I'm writing it down, everybody. Everybody gets that. That's the next theme. I had a past. Wonderful. Okay. We are going, oh God, I keep saying this. Thank you. Thank you everyone for being here. Thank you everyone for doing this. This has filled, I don't mean to be selfish, this has filled my heart in ways I cannot begin to articulate. And this man especially, as he rounds us out so we can all go back to our living rooms, that takes a while. But I'm so grateful for this man. He has, you know this man, the amount of one-person shows he's done. I always ask him to do something special. He does not know how irresistible he is. I don't think he does. He does not know that we cling to him and we hold him close to our bosom because he truly is our little storytelling slice of heaven. Mr. Mike Lambert.
Whoa, hello everybody. Thank you, nice to be here. Welcome to my luxurious Hollywood home. Let's go sit by the pool, shall we? Okay. Hold on. Okay. This is called geology. I grew up in close proximity to 3 active volcanoes, or as I called them, Mom, Dad, and Marilyn. Marilyn was my older sister, or so they tell me. I've never really believed it. And she was only Marilyn. She was only Marilyn until I was 11, when she changed her name to Heidi. And God help anyone who called her Marilyn after that. Mount St. Heidi, goddess of fire, spewer of indiscriminate F-bombs. Verbal fireworks were the norm at our house. My mom, Mount St. Kathy, and my dad, Mount St. Jody, were erupting all the time. Unlike geological volcanoes, they could actually focus their eruptions in directions of their own choosing, usually toward each other, sometimes toward Mount St. Heidi. Mount St. Heidi was more an equal opportunity threat. Her flaming emotional boulders exploded in all directions at the same time. So one learned early on never to stand too close for too long, lest the ground start to shake, and she literally blew her top. It's tempting at this point in my life to blame my family members for their volcanic behavior and personalities, and to see myself as the passive bystander, minding my own business, a humble indigenous farmer, tirelessly laboring to eke out a modest living raising pineapples in a valley of molten rock. But that story only goes so far. Truth is, I was a volcano too, but you never would have known it. My eruptions happened on the inside, top secret, like nuclear tests, subterranean. I learned to carefully spew all my dioxides and sulfides and halides. Can you tell I've been binge watching Breaking Bad? Toward one, I spewed them toward one and only one person, myself. And no one suspected a thing, least of all me. My daily escape from all of this volatility, inner and outer, was school. Mount St. Kathy and Mount St. Jody saw to it for some inexplicable reason that leaves me both grateful and mystified to this day, that I go to an excellent private school to receive a top-rate education in the conspicuously prosperous city of Beverly Hills. Berkeley Hall School was a lush, verdant plain of calm and normalcy, with not even a hint of geological explosiveness, emotionally speaking. There was a catch, however, to all this comfort and quiet. In order to go to Berkeley Hall, you had to be, or claim to be, a Christian Scientist. Not just a Christian Scientist, but a good Christian Scientist. And there was only one way to be a good Christian Scientist. Beside not drinking or smoking or seeing doctors or taking medicine, because that was the easy part, you had to believe, to really believe, no, not believe, but to know, to really, really know that nothing that you could see, hear, smell, taste, touch, or feel inside or out was real. Nothing. Strep throat, painful, not real. Stub toe, bleeding, not real. In second grade, I got hit in the head with a baseball bat by Louis Snyder, smack on my forehead, by accident. Oh, I forgot to mention, in Christian Science, there are no accidents either. Or school nurses. But when I passed out, they laid me on a couch outside the principal's office and prayed. At the time, I thought they were praying for me, but looking back, I think they were praying that Mount St. Kathy wouldn't bring a lawsuit. But even at that tender age, I wanted to be a good Christian Scientist. I truly did. I think somehow I thought that if I could really feel and know that nothing I was seeing or feeling was real, then I'd be okay and safe, and the volcanoes would all go dormant. But the harder and harder I tried to know that nothing was real, the more real everything seemed, and the more eruptive and violent my secret inner volcano became, to the point where by sixth grade, life had become, well, stressful. But there was a balm in Gilead. Actually, it was a balm in Beverly Hills, as it turned out, and that balm was Mrs. Pirtle, Berkeley Hall School's music teacher. We had music class with Mrs. Pirtle every day of the year, every weekday, from first grade to eighth grade. She got fired by the time I reached ninth grade, and we were never told why, but I always suspected it had to do with her own emotional volatility. Berkeley Hall was like Stepford in a number of ways, and Mrs. Pirtle just didn't fit in. She was too real, which is exactly what I loved about her. She was a volcano too, but a friendly one. Mrs. Pirtle taught us how to read the notes on a piano keyboard, how to recognize the sounds of all the different instruments, how an orchestra was organized in sections, woodwinds, brass, strings, percussion. She taught us everything. It was more than music appreciation. For me, it was music devourment. I loved it, and I loved her. In sixth grade, we had music class right after lunch. We would stumble into the music room after playing long and hard on our lunch break outside, tag, dodgeball, foursquare, roller skating. And it was very smoggy in Beverly Hills in those days, extremely. And we could come into that room wheezing and coughing. Our eyes would be watering. And of course, we couldn't admit that any of that was happening because, well, you know. But Mrs. Pirtle knew. She would have us all take our seats. She would have us lean back in our chairs and close our eyes and get calm. She would turn out the lights and close the Venetian blinds. And on the record player, in the cool, dim room, she would play the Grand Canyon Suite by Ferdi-Grofé. And she would talk us through it with our eyes closed, leading us in what today is called guided meditation, but back then it was just Mrs. Pirtle doing her thing. And with the different sections and movements, she would invite us to imagine seeing the Grand Canyon, all those colored layers of granite, the power and vastness of the huge walls of rock, and the river and valley below, to hear the clip-clop rhythm of the mules, the mocking hee-haw sounds they made, to feel the up and down, side-to-side motion as they casually hooked their way down steep, windy, narrow paths where one false step could send the rider hurtling into oblivion, but it never happened because the mules knew this trail backwards and forwards. We heard the thunderclap of a distant storm approaching and the downpour of the rain washing through the canyon and drenching the mules and the riders. And then the clearing, the sun re-emerging from behind dark clouds peace and quiet restored, and beauty. Unspeakable beauty and calm, and a kind of joy rising with the warming air. And in that moment, Mrs. Pirtle made us whole. In that moment, what we believed or didn't believe or knew or didn't know didn't matter. What was real or unreal didn't matter. Smog didn't matter. Berkeley Hall didn't matter. Volcanoes didn't matter. That was Mrs. Pirtle's 6th grade music class. I have come to believe that this story has value, not to believe, but to know, to really know. I need to tell it, because if I don't, I will forget. I will forget that there were moments in my early life that were not volcanic, that were peaceful and loving and calm and safe. That's it. I was safe. And I need to remember it so that I can be safe today, right now. Feel it and to know it as real. Speaking of real, I have a vacation coming up in a couple of weeks. My first trip ever to the Grand Canyon. I will be riding a mule all the way from the top of the South Rim to the bottom of the canyon floor, spending a night in a lodge at the base, and riding back up the next day, 5 hours down, 6 hours up. I know, I will be sore. And at some point, given my history, I will probably want to believe that the pain isn't real. But as Mount St. Heidi would say, fuck that. Thanks, folks.
Oh. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Oh, Mike Lambert, thank you so much. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. I just want to tell everybody here, again, I thank you. I love you all. And probably tonight in my pillow, I will weep. I will weep deeply because we did this tonight for the first time. And I feel fully fed. So I want to thank all the storytellers, Miss Donna Allen Figueroa, Miss Pat Wilson, Mr. Tony Figueroa, Miss Lila Silvern, Mr. Rick Hall, Mr. Ty Fans, Mr. Dan Farron, and Mr. Mike Lambert. Thank you all. Whoa. And may we have a huge shout out for Miss Amber Greenberg, her genius and her talent. Thank you, Amber. Give it up. I will be doing this again around Halloween. Please come, we will hustle it more. This was exquisite tonight. I thank you, everyone. And I suggest that we all go out and do like what Miss Pirtle did, which was her own thing. Just do your own thing. Miss Pirtle way or a different way. Blessings to you on your trip, Mr. Lambert. Blessings to everyone. Stay safe. And as I say every week, most stories, everybody, please, most stories, please, and most stories. Thank you all. Good night, love.